Hey guys, my name is Skye. Welcome to my channel and Chantal's channel. This is a brand new podcast. This is the Women Healing Naturally podcast. Chantal is high raw. I am a raw vegan. Chantal is a naturopath. And I have spent 32 years sick. A lot of my time was in women's health, and I've come through the other side. So we thought we'd come together and talk on this. Welcome, Chantal.
Hi, Skye. I'm so excited about this, quite honestly. It's like, as I told you last week, it was timely, perfectly timely.
It is, yeah. And like I feel like I'm trying to grasp and grab and put together all these different elements of different people I see in the community who have different skill sets. And I love yours because yours is such a methodical, you're a naturopath, you're working with herbs as well as diving deeper into the science of it. So I thought that was a great aspect which could really help women. But why don't you explain your healing journey, your health, and how you became a naturopath?
Yeah. So I had always a tumor, like very strange, very complex relationship with my body. I grew up in a with a mom that had bulimia, and I remember seeing her binge and purge. I don't think she realized because she was very young. My mom was very young, and I don't think she realized the impact that it had on me, particularly because
Mm.
I was always very sporty and athletic, versus my sister was always very skinny. So my mother was referring to perfect body being skinny, like she and my sister obviously portrayed that. Given my sister didn't eat, I ate everything, but I was very athletic. So I didn't pay attention to this per se until I became a teenager, but then because of that I actually went into a very disorderly relationship with food around 15, 16 years old, and I actually became anorexic. And because of that short anorexia, thankfully, like just 2, 3 years, I came out of it pretty okay and quickly. um, I, however, didn't heal a lot of the things that were connected to that distorted relationship with food. And
Mm.
the main thing was that there was a lot of emotional stuff that I didn't know that I had to deal with. So my whole 20s was very much about binging, restricting, like a very, very, very bad relationship with food. I was also having animal products, which really never worked for me, like especially dairy. But I didn't know better. Like, you hear something and then, of course, you see a doctor. Doctors don't know about nutrition. So I was very confused. And when I got turned 30 and I did my blood work, I was like, this is interesting. I had high cholesterol, my A1C, which I didn't actually test, but they did the fasting glucose was really high. So A1C probably was high too. But I was just on the verge of pre-diabetic. And I was like, okay, I'm not eating really healthy. Like I don't eat any grains. I just eat like protein with veggies, and so I was restricting myself and not getting healthier. And then I heard a talk by Dr. Neil Barnard. And when I heard the connection between diabetes and animal products, fats, I was like, hey, this is interesting actually. Um, and then I basically thought, this is interesting. Doctors that I go and see don't know much. But then I'm listening to all these, I have this now, access to these like doctors that are more like functional medical doctors, because
Mm.
I started studying at IIN while I was also working in banking. And I had done quite a lot of nutrition courses before, but I never wanted to become a nutritionist because I was like, I don't know, this doesn't resonate. It was very clinical, and I always had that voice in the back of my head. But when I did IIN, it's not a qualification that can get you to become, I think, like you have to study further. But what it did, like it reversed engineered what I had studied before. So I was like, okay, this is a missing link. Like actually I can learn from people. And then I started looking at naturopathy, and I started looking at different modalities. When I was in South Africa, actually back home, homeopathy was a very big thing. Like you had to study for 6 years. But I didn't really resonate with homeopathy as a science to become a doctor in. rather a modality of healing, which is what I found being used in naturopathy. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I started looking at schools later, like in 2000, when I left JP Morgan in 2015. I started doing different things that were more holistic. And then I studied at HEHI, the Energetic Health Institute, to just put in the holistic nutrition and then naturopathy. And then I also studied with Dr. Morse to do the detoxing protocols. And when I created the picture together, it just was like, okay, this is actually much more in depth. Now, I want to just say that I'm not poo-pooing on any schools or any education. Is not the point. I just think when you become a practitioner, whether it's a naturopath or a medical practitioner, just thinking that you are done and you know everything when you finish your education, your school, when you get your degree, when you get your diplomas, is just not enough. Because A, science evolves. B, quite honestly, we have to really, there are so many nuisances with everything. And one of the things that I never did before, but I started doing, is looking at studies and actually learning how to read studies, how to interpret them, and actually also then understand, okay, some studies give you guidance and sometimes they just really allow us to know what works as a whole. But then there is also the part where everybody's quite unique, and so we have to dive deep into it. And I applied this knowledge to me because I actually got sick in 2018 while I was doing this project in Portugal. I was going up and down between London and Portugal. I was really stressed, and we moved here in 2019, and it was a catastrophe because like I lost my community and my platform in London, and then I was here trying to start the retreats, and there were many things that didn't go right. I felt very lonely, and that really escalated through the years. I didn't even know I was sick until 2021, and when I actually had type 2 diabetes. And I then I basically had to just think, okay, what am I going to do with this? And this is when I really dove deep into everything I studied and go even deeper in most studies to learn how to heal myself. And that I didn't want to be another person that was on metformin, for example, for my glucose, my high glucose or my high 1C, that I wanted to really understand what was causing the issue, looking at the root cause, because ultimately that's what we study in naturopathy, like looking at the root cause. So this was the approach for me. And through the years, and you and I have talked before, but since 2021 to now, like a lot of things have changed, because actually as I started healing, I also started learning. I started learning more about the fact that there are things inside of us that make us become the healers that we have to be, and everybody can be their own healer, and you can just get support from people like me. But ultimately you have to want to heal if you want to get better, because nobody can do it for you. And also, it's not just about the food, and it's not just about the taking the supplements. It's not just about these external things, but actually a lot of the inner work, which of course I had understood when I became vegan the first time, and when I was trying to get away from binge eating and a disorderly relationship with food. But it kind of reiterated, and I think it's also in parallel with the fact that I was going through perimenopause already, those changes. And because I got sick, it escalated highly. So I had a lot of symptoms that I didn't understand what was going on anymore, which is actually something we should talk about, because I'm going through something right now, which is really interesting as well. However, yes, that's really what my journey was about. And it's in parallel with my study. And one of my teachers said to me when I graduated, you are best at serving people who you once were. So if you have experience, that you're a better practitioner, because you actually can relate to them.
You finished that on the most perfect note. It's the wounded healer, right? Even like when you look in the past and you look at people who paint pictures in books, and there's always the wise old man with the walking stick who's bald and he's in rags, and he's been through it, right? And that's why the wise man goes through it. And that's where my experience comes from. And I know somebody asked what this is about, and it is about women healing naturally. My journey is quite long. I have had 60 surgeries and 8 organs removed. But the major thing for me was women's health. I had a rare congenital disease. They called it endostromatosis, endo being
Yeah.
endocrine system, stroma being like organ or meat, and osis made it a disease. And it was essentially a second piece of uterus on my uterosacral ligament. And being congenital, that means I was born with it. And so, without going into too much detail, is my body didn't get rid of those cells when they went in the wrong spot. So it's laid dormant until you turn 8 or 9, and your body's prepping for puberty. And then my brain's mapped with extra hormone receptors like estrogen. So the pain that I experienced by the time I was 16, I was in so much pain. But you brought up a good point, is a lot of my memories and trauma when I work with a natural healer revolve around the fact for about 10 years, nobody believed me. And if you have hormones irregular and histamine issues, and you see it's more common now for women to have extraordinary amounts of pain. You see all these women like me now and especially with social media, on ketamine, on opioids for pelvic sort of pain. But to scream in pain from such a young age and they can't find anything, that is emotional turmoil when you are already so dysregulated. And I guess it's kind of molded who I am today. But then I guess it's kind of been pushed back down because things did get quite bad as I went through, and that's been pushed back down. But that was when you're talking about how you developed your thought patterns. That was what was going on for me when I was becoming a woman, that you say your stomach hurts, you're in pain, and nobody really believes you. So I went through a lot of surgery, naturopaths, doctors, physios, osteos, professors, surgeons. It ended up causing other secondary problems where I lost my stomach. But I think where one of the greatest things is the person who actually gave me a hysterectomy at 30 is, I saw a reel this morning come up and said, who was the first doctor that believed you? And when somebody believes in you, how much better you already feel is exponential. And I know Dr. Brooke Goldner often talks about how everyone, you can't judge anybody who goes to a doctor all the time for fun. Like, nobody. There's something obviously wrong. So, and I also think about the time I spent with this professor who did this surgery, and I stayed with his clinic. He's helped with the estradiol, the bioidentical hormones. His clinic actually had women's health physio, women's health. Having a mental blank. What is the
Osteopathy?
needles?
Oh,
Yes,
acupuncture.
yes, around him. He was, and he would see, he was the first professor that I went in, and a surgeon. This is very rare for a surgeon. Most very good surgeons are cut, chop, and go. He sat with me, I think, for an hour. And whenever I came in, even for checkups, he'd ask, like, where do you see yourself going? What's your future look like? And that's all, I think, really important if you want to support people on their journey. Sometimes it's half the cure, right? Is feeling
Yes.
safe. So I have come out the back of that. I've had massive, as people can imagine from all that trauma, psychiatric issues. But most of it's funny because when I talk on topics, is I have so much confidence in myself until we hit something like that is new to me, which I've never experienced. So I do, for example, other podcasts like Book Club, and I'm just getting back into reading. So I go really quiet, but because I've been through so much when it comes to women's health and healing and trauma and emotions, I felt like this was just absolutely perfect. And a great combination for us to talk about. But I hopefully there's many videos on my channel. You can look deeper into my story. I would love us to start into, I mean, where you're at right now, because I think that can feed off into where the expertise lies to connect with people and help people.
Yeah, so right now I'm based in Portugal, but my practice is online. I'm working only with women, so I focus on hormonal health, and it's the transition between perimenopause all the way to postmenopause. And the reason I wanted to stay in the space is because of what I've been through, of course. And as I said, you are best served at catering for people that you know what they are going through because you've been going through, in my opinion. So and my teacher's opinion, but because of that, I just felt a strong call of helping women. The other thing was, you said until somebody believes you, it's really, really hard. And one of the things, and I hope you didn't have to face this, I don't think you have per se, because your case was so severe that nobody could actually deny it. But the gaslighting at home for me was really, and is still present, when my ex-partner would say, basically doesn't understand what I went through, and I don't think he appreciates what it feels like to feel in a certain way. And I just saw, and I just started hearing so many women feeling the same. And that gaslighting is at home, and that hurts, because obviously you are with people that see you all the time. You expect them to actually care. And then in the doctor's office, which I've experienced too, because I also go and see doctors, right? So, and sometimes you say we go for fun. Sometimes I do it for research. So what I do, I go and see different gynecologists, especially, and talk to them about certain things. And I can see from the answer that whether they know or not. Um, and the other thing I can relate to what you said actually is this trauma that comes up when you are facing something or reliving something or remembering something. It actually happened to me this weekend. So basically, last week I went to see my gynecologist. She's amazing, honestly, I can't complain. But she's also very, very excited about HRT, which I am as well, because like since I'm learning about it, I'm like, wow, this stuff actually is so empowering, like that we have access to it. But I something that I think this weekend humbled me was remembering that even if HRT is safe, there are always consequences of taking medicine. And also, it's not always the best approach first, for depending where you are in your stage. Like one thing is to take it if you are in menopause, and even just like the perimenopause stage 1 year before menopause versus earlier, because I see online a lot of people that just want to go on it earlier. But she did a check on me. So basically I had hypothalamic amenorrhea since last year, mostly because I just dropped a lot of weight. I was super stressed. I've been going through a lot of personal changes, including, separation, going through divorce, having to settle down our finances and everything in between, trying to keep it civil and friendly instead of like, but my ex-husband is not always the easiest person to talk to, because he's very avoidant. So it feels like sometimes the conversations that we have to have are not always complete. And so it's very, very overwhelming for me, because I'm the kind of person that just wants to have a full conversation. And again, a lot of women report this when it comes to like difficult conversation with their partners. And that affects us, right? It affects our hormones and our nervous system. And yeah, so I've noticed that online there is this thing about my gynecologist was like, you have amenorrhea. I'm just worried about your bones. Let's put you on HRT. I'm like, I'm not ready for HRT right now. Like I'm 44. I'm not gonna go on HRT at the moment. I'm definitely thinking, studying, considering for later if I need it, but I'm not gonna take it as a preventative, pill or patch. Patch is better than actually pill, because it doesn't go through the liver. But she then analyzed me and she was like, okay, well, but I still think you should take estriol, vaginal gel estriol. To that, I was like, okay, we can do that. I didn't realize how sensitive however, I am to estrogen as a whole, because obviously my body's still making it. It's just that my body is connected to and she saw that I have follicles, everything is fine, but it's just my brain is like, we cannot ovulate and we cannot have babies. So we're just stopping the show for now. But I'm still operating with hormones working, and the hypothalamus is still working. So she gave me this, and I thought, okay, I'll try it, and very small amount. But the severe contraindication that I had this past week, it has been insane. And this is from vaginal gel, which is safe, and estriol, not estradiol. Estriol is quite weak as a hormone in comparison to estradiol, and I still reacted to it. So what happened is that I started having like very severe edema from my belly all to my knees. And I'm still right now at this moment in time. This is why I've been drinking Dr. Morse's whole heal tea to get that diuretic side out of it. And tomorrow I'm actually starting a juice fast. So our party, when it comes to me, as always, I'm gonna have to be the one that says, I'll tell you what to do, but I'm not gonna have it. Basically, yeah, I'm starting a juice fast, the juice cleanse. I just need to like reset because it has brought some trauma for me, which you referred
Yes.
to when something happens again, to when I was sick. And I looked at myself in the mirror after 8 months. I hadn't, and I saw my legs in the state that they were. I honestly had PTSD. Today, I was feeling so overwhelmed. Like, yeah, Friday and yesterday was when it started, and I only taken it twice. I only applied it twice. Okay, so that's how
Mm.
sensitive, and very little. But I just started feeling so overwhelmed. But I was very busy this weekend working, so I didn't have the time. But today I had the time, and I truly felt PTSD. Like I was so overwhelmed by the feeling and memories and fear that I messed up my body. And I was like, what a humbling experience, though, because again, when I work with my clients, I always want my clients to know that I'm very real. I just, like those are things that we know from research, and those are the things I'm experiencing. And as I said before, I have a lot of clients who are older, so menopause. For them, the experience is going to be completely different because their body's not making estrogen. But for a woman that is actually making estrogen, considering going on HRT, it has to be a very thought out conversation,
Yes.
even with vaginal, right?
Yes, and I'm glad actually you brought up this topic. So a few things came up, and one of the first things is you were talking about. I hope that you didn't feel gaslit by your family. I think what you almost think my brain is when it comes to, and that's probably why I'm such an empath, is I think so much for other people. I think because of how um, gaslit, how unbelieved I was. But I think you have to understand is someone like my sister's never been to hospital except to have a baby. That's it. That's it. So and other people are going on with their lives, and I think you get so far from them that they can't imagine. It's like two different worlds. But when my mum got unwell, everything changed. She's like, I get it. Nobody knew what was wrong. But what the biggest thing that I would love to talk about is the fact that you went to your gynecologist, and without addressing lifestyle, relaxing, meditation, talking deeper, they're excited for hormone replacement, which I'm on estradiol. I had a hysterectomy at 30, my choice. I don't agree with the first line. I've had a surgical removal of these organs, so that's different. But you have it just, you're starting to feel the changes of an estrogen drop, and the first line is a drug. Basically, I know it's bioidentical, but it is a drug that
No,
does have
bioidentical only means bioidentical is still a drug, as you like. It's actually, it doesn't mean that it's from nature. It just
no.
means that it's a molecule that is similar to what our body makes. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
There's, I think people are confused here. Actually, it has something to spell out. Bioidentical people think is from plants and is natural. Bioidentical only means that the structure is really similar to our own. So it allows our body to take it on like on the receptors like it would our own
Yes, and on that
endogenous.
going onto the receptors, it's very different than suppression. And I like to
Yes,
explain that. So we're not talking about a drug where
contraceptive.
you are
Yeah.
actually they love to invent drugs which are actually foreign to the body. And my experience, so the reason opioids worked so well for me is we have a similar response or receptor sites in the body. And so it essentially felt much better in my system, horrible to come off. But when you put anything foreign, and they love inventing these drugs that you don't need to have a tolerance to, and they say this sleeping pill's great, this antidepressant's great, you take the one tablet for life and you don't get a tolerance because it's so foreign. So I just know from experience, I'm not recommending opioids, I'm not even recommending hormones, but I seem to, because the receptor sites are already there, and my organ is missing, I have found in my experience it works better. But I don't agree. So what happens is, yes, HRT is taken off, and they've found that the study that they promoted and back, these women
The
had
women,
been in menopause
2000.
for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, for years, and then they're older, and then they put them back. It's just not a real life situation, and then they got breast cancer increase, and that was very similar to the amount of breast cancer somebody would have got anyway. And now they're saying unless you have a gene, it's protective for your brain. And I can tell you a lot of it is my brain health is much better. A huge reason is brain health. My skin is better, but it's my memory. That really helps. But because it's the buzzword, right? It's the first line of defense, which is being thrown at every woman over 40. And it reminds me of when I went to the doctor at 16 with my first issues and they throw the pill. The pill's the solution.
Yeah.
Throw the pill. Not talking to a young girl who is drinking Pepsi and eating chips and lounging around in bed more now, not doing as much exercise. No talk of that. It's the pill. And then the second one that comes up, if the pill doesn't work for skin and for mood and for period regulation, it's an antidepressant. And around the time these are thrown at me, these are the buzzwords. You know, there's obviously more. And so I think now is these doctors are spending their free time hearing this, whereas you're spending your free time, you know, doing naturopathic work, energetic work, herbs, Dr. Morse. And so when someone comes to you, they get that. And we don't think about this enough, I don't think. Like when you, because we're in fight or flight and we just want help. And we've learned from such a young age that these doctors and are the front line. But that's like the flavor of the month, right? Is if you go, it's not really a balanced approach.
It really does depend. And again, in my particular case with my gynecologist, the conversation is she obviously is worried that because I haven't had my period that my bones will be affected. But again, I work out a lot. Like I lift weights. Like my lifestyle is pretty good. I'm on a mostly raw diet. I don't eat animal products. I'm very low inflammation. So actually when we did our blood work, everything actually was fine, including my hormones. Even though I have hypothalamic amenorrhea, my brain is just truly, and I understand in the high intelligence of the body. As I said, it's a protective mechanism. You lose your period. And this happens a lot, and it happens a lot with athletes. And I think actually one of the things that I probably should mention is that I started training last year, and I do heavy weights. And I think perhaps what happened is like the amount of calories that I was having from the food versus what I was expending now doing heavy weights was just a big gap that I didn't address because I felt so great, strong, and energetic. So I'm like, whatever, I don't need more food. Like I eat so much food, you know, but apparently I need more. And but it's all of that. And I think obviously, even if this is a private doctor that I saw and she has more time for me, there is obviously the time restraint. But in terms of her, I mean, I wish every doctor was like her, because yes, she did offer that, but I think she also did it at the back of the fact that I know about HRT and she feels confident about it. And even if I know about HRT, I have experienced side effects that I did not think about that I would try, because I was like, well, this is not like I was on the pill before, terrible stuff for your gut, for your brain, the contraceptive pill. And I thought, okay, this is not actually going to go into my system per se. It's localized. Generally, with vaginal estrogen, you do not impact the whole system. It's not systematic. However, it still does. If you are a high absorber and insensitive, still does affect your whole overall levels. So yes, I believe, like you say, we have to look at lifestyle. We have to look at where we are in our stage. We have to look at so many parts of our patients / clients state of wellness, mentally, physically, spiritually, before we go to medication, because sometimes you can actually fix somebody by addressing the lifestyle more than just adding a pill in, whether there is to block something, which, as you mentioned, a lot of drugs do, or to enhance, because both have, the give and take. Like they both have cause and effect, and we have to think about what that means, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, and you're right. I mean, you are coming to her as a naturopath, so she's probably thinking that, you have this more awareness of what's going on in your body. But I would love to bring more awareness to people because I saw a nurse the other day talking about, and it was very refreshing. She said she's an emergency room nurse, and she said if you come to the hospital into emergency, doctors, when it comes to trauma and broken legs and burns and a choking child, Yeah, she's going, amazing, 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 amazing. She said, if you have chronic illness, we are suppressing your symptoms. She
Yeah,
goes, I became a nurse thinking I was going to save the world. Who's out there thinking they're going to save the world? And she goes, and I see diabetic, high blood pressure, arthritic, all this list, and all it is. And if the complaint gets worse, it's just another pill, which is, it was just, I don't hear it much. And I guess a lot of people don't want to talk about it in the medical industry, but it's just something that everybody should think about when they first go, when these things, come up. So
totally. And I
when that,
think it's also the fact that, and especially now when we look at studies, we have to understand one thing. And I think there's obviously borderline conspiracy, but not really. Like we we have a system where, like, plants, for example, are well studied, but they are studied for their compounds to then be become medication, because obviously you cannot patent nature. So any plant, most all medication is coming from a plant,
yes.
but they are then modified in a lab so that they can be patented to become a medication, to be a pharmaceutical. So there's a lot of science about the benefits and the strength of plants. However, we are not really privy to all the details, because it would be very inconvenient then for people to say, why am I taking the medication? I'll just take the plant, and how do I use it? And there's also a camp that thinks, well, plants are they can be quite dangerous, right? Like they can be poisonous. And it's true, there's a level of toxicity that comes with plants, but there's also a level of toxicity that comes with medication. That's why there's a whole list
Mm.
of contraindications, right?
Yeah, but I mean, also, I think I'm a prime example of what isolating something does, right? So I eat whole raw foods and my life
Mm,
completely changed. I'm well, I'm healthy, right? Is if you just go back into the past, you're watching me eat components of plants which have been chemically altered, which have been compressed, which have been whatever's been done to them, right? And all that happened was I was sick. And that's like watching in real time what medication will do. And I think the biggest thing is, I always say, is people think that the risks written for medications don't apply to them. And
mm,
if you want to take a medication, do it, but take the whole package. You can't take, I just want the suppression or the relief. It's like estradiol is, I need to take the good with the bad if I choose to take it, and that's all my responsibility. The reason I always bring this topic up is because the power I have now over my life and my future is based on the fact that I took my power back from the past. Is I was over 18, I signed off, except for the emergency surgeries, on all my surgeries. Anything
mm.
goes wrong, that's already listed there. I can die, I can have my life altered. And in taking that power back, it means I get to choose my future. And that's really important to me. And I think the more you put into yourself and you value yourself, when you go to a doctor, you are a lot less likely to put something foreign or unknown, not just at doctors, anytime, or even things that don't agree with you. And so there's benefits on working on yourself, with the sleep, with food, with exercise, with good people, good choices every day. It just, it serves you, it serves your future.
Yeah.
So I think
I
that's,
actually, when you just said something, it brought something to me, like when, working on all the aspects. And as I mentioned before, women and trauma, big, big effort to make there, because we hold so much in our bodies as women, and it comes up in when we start perimenopause in our late 30s, mid 30s, all the way to the day we are postmenopausal. um, there is a transition, not just hormonally, but there's a transition also with what we tolerate or not. But a lot of people that haven't dealt with the trauma, they will carry it through postmenopause. And postmenopause, quite honestly, is like, it should be the best period of our lives, because at that point it's like you have this maturity and wisdom to say, I am not tolerating being treated in a certain way. I'm not tolerating being spoken to in a certain way. I'm not tolerating trauma from the past to make me feel in a certain way. So there is a very detailed, deep healing that can happen, but you have to address it. And when you said putting things in our body and not just in the scope of medication, a lot of people and a lot of women that will go and just try to do ayahuasca or other psychedelic drugs to try and reach that moment of clarity. And for God's sakes, you do, when you do these drugs, have that moment of clarity because all your barriers are down. Your subconscious is wide open. But the issue is you cannot live in that state forever. And what happens when that consciousness, because the brain will go back into protective mode and not have you be as open and available and free as you feel when you are on psychedelics. So if you don't work on trauma, what are you going to do? So I see people go for more and more retreats where they do higher and higher doses, but their trauma never goes away because they don't address it when they're actually sober. So instead of going for psychedelics to try and get over the trauma, if you want to do in conjunction with therapy, that's a choice that people can make and can discuss with their therapist, and you can do microdosing if that helps. I mean, there are many ways, but this concept of let's put something in our body and then see, how we can feel amazing, and you have like a trip for 8 hours and then I'm healed. That is not such a thing, and it's actually quite dangerous. And especially women don't think about this, and men too, but there's obviously neurological side. There is the brain that can change its shape in a way, if you want to. I'm not meaning in the shape, but like the connectivities, and people can have some mental breakdown by doing these drugs. That's a first risk that people have to talk about. Nobody talks about. Everybody has these retreats. Let's go there, take this, take that. Okay, it's fashionable, but there are risks. Let's talk about these risks. The other thing is, for women, what does it do it hormonally for us? Because again, you're working on the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, and those are the master communicators for all the organs in your body that will have to release hormones. And we have so many more hormones than just estrogen and progesterone, but those are our main sex hormones. If you disrupt that pathway, what happens to us? What happens to our adrenals when our ovaries are not making hormones anymore? Like, we have to think about all this, and I feel like people just don't talk about it enough.
You said so many things there, and just coming off the back of that, a couple of things I wanted to say is where you see people partying, going out, high stress jobs, not sleeping, fly over to somewhere and do ayahuasca for a weekend, and that's going to fix. But then they go back, partying, high stress. It's like you've just kind of created. And the other thing you were saying is these neural networks that are created in the brain, and this is what happens even when we can say we're releasing trauma. But the more we trigger trauma, the brain has to strengthen pathways in the brain. And especially you go add those hormones and you're going to stimulate the adrenals, you get the adrenaline, the cortisol that goes up, you're really solidifying that, right? And that's what we don't want. There is times as well for healing, but what if you teach yourself? This is why when I got myself well with the raw foods, and a lot of people like, you detox, you go hard and you strip and you feel pain. I'm like, no, I have to learn to love. I have stripped, I have gone down holes, I have been miserable, but you have to sit in it, and it's slow. Is every time I try jump some levels in healing, I've missed the lessons. So when I fall a bit, I've got no scaffolding there to hold me because I never learnt anything. And that's the whole thing with these drugs and flinging yourself off, is you've got some lows and you've got some highs, but you've never learnt any balance in between. And what I think life and the hypothalamus is the balance, right? The homeostasis of the body. So if we think about that is what the body wants most, yet we're not doing it. We're like really like, and it's not, I remember somebody speaking recently even about the movies and the crime shows that people want is, it's not even this adrenaline seeking, is they're trying to hit as many emotions as they can because that will trigger more hormones. So the world is set up to really stimulate you, but we need to find that calm. And I just also wanted to talk on, you mentioned about how it's such a perfect time in your life to get to know yourself when it can be a bit of turmoil when you're going through perimenopause, but once you start transitioning through peri and then menopause and postmenopause, is you don't have the evolutionary drive as a hyper focus of reproduction anymore, like how much your cycle drives your life. And of course, like your looks and beauty is at the forefront because you're supposed to attract the best mate, and then it's like nurturing a baby and you're coming out of that. What a better time to turn around and to like I say turn around, but really face the fact that this is where you get to become the you that you were destined to be.
Yeah, and also talking about nurturing, women nurture others because that's what we've been taught we have to do. And in a way, of course, it's part of survival. If you don't nurture a baby, the baby cannot survive. But when you get to menopause, what happens is that you are finally actually nurturing that your the small version of you.
I
And I
agree.
think, that small child, because I think everybody thinks we, we don't, I'm fine. Like, things that happen in my childhood don't matter anymore. But one thing I know for sure is that when I started going through the healing journey in from 2021, especially, my little Chantal was so angry with me for not looking after her. And the last conversation I had with that part of me wasn't long ago. And I was amazing. I just had to really say, you're safe. And like I had to say that I'm sorry. But now I have the time for her, which I never had before. And I didn't actually, I chose not to have children. So I didn't, but I'm very motherly and I always looked after everybody. I
Yeah.
grew up with that sense of like I have to look after everybody, but I didn't look after myself. Like I survived, and in that survival, you can feel and look and sound selfish to some people that are not understanding the inner work of our minds. But like truly, when you start looking after yourself and you put yourself as a priority and you talk to your little child inside, the
Mm.
magic can happen. That's actually the healing that can happen. So
Yeah,
it's yeah.
yeah, when that was back to like when I said and I started healing and I looked deeper into myself and I reflected back and everyone's healing, trying to heal in this really intense way. And the hugest part is this. I feel like the getting out in nature and the stopping all the addictions and the raw food was me loving me. But I was just thinking how little me felt so neglected. That how was I growing up focused on I need a friend, I need boys, I need to care for other people. And how, when we grow up, every time we try and do something for ourselves, a lot of how society was built when I was young was you're selfish. You're like, stop being, it's not all about you, stop being selfish. To give, you go and donate, but not, I feel like all these things are important, but what if you learn to love yourself first? And schools taught this, the nurturing,
Mm,
and that you then, once your cup overflows with love, little kids have got extra time then to choose where they want to put their energy. And this is happening much later in life now because we're literally never taught to look after ourselves. We're given things and we're made to eat things and do things which we don't want to do. Then we get into a
yes.
system which does more of that. Then it drills in all of this knowledge from other people, not ourselves. And then we wonder why we have, our body and mind just falls apart. And that really definitely came up for me a lot. And it's hard because of the way we're trained from a young age that doctors are the answer, and what can a little kid know? Whereas a lot of especially when I was first getting well, animals and children were the ones that helped me the most. In fact, when I was at rock bottom, like I cannot tell, I've been at some rock bottoms, but this was beyond. And I was drinking, I had the FND, I had been
Yeah.
sick my whole life, I was having seizures, and my little nieces, and they were very young, so 6 and 4, maybe 7 and 5, but came into my room one night because I was living at mum and dad's at the time, and they just started playing all their favorite inspirational songs. They wouldn't leave me, just kept playing them. And I took one of the songs called Daisies by Katy Perry, and I actually played it just about every day, and it inspired me to get well. And I think when things come at you from pure love, we know, and the effect, like to think of what that, how powerful that is, a child's love, or they're closest to source, they're the least disrupted, and so are
Mm,
animals. And yeah, it's just wherever you're at on your healing journey, it's just something to think about.
so true. Um, I want to actually address. There was a question about in the comments about getting pregnant at 50. I
Oh
think
yeah, I saw that.
Carrie and Ben were talking about it. And
Yes.
Carrie's right. Like, you have to, there's a massive effort that has to go in. There is a lot of hormones that have to be taken. However, I will say this: if we lived in a state of health as we are meant to, we actually could potentially have children much later in life,
Mm,
because we our when we study the body, our reproductive system shouldn't stop working at 50. We should go a little bit longer. um, it's just that um, we truly have had a lifestyle that has changed our makeup. And I think for that, even though we live longer, we don't live longer in the way that we should be living. So of course, reproduction as stops earlier. Women actually, because of estrogen drops, we are more likely to have things like heart attacks and strokes and dementia, which nobody talked about it up to now, right? So it's a very new topic that we converse about. So we might live longer, but a lot of women don't live healthier. So of course, survival, and the body's like, yeah, we cannot have children at 50, otherwise, like, by the time you're 70 and your kid is 20, you're like, you lost your marbles, so it's like, like, why would
oh
we do that?
gosh.
And but we shouldn't live like that. But unfortunately, like, we are bombarded by things like even estrogen disrupt oh not estrogen, but hormone disruptors, they're everywhere, and they truly create such a turmoil in the body,
Mm,
and the overall system. So our bodies are smart and they adapt. So yes, we could have children at 50, and some people have, but it's not ideal in the circumstances that we live in. I'm sure that there are some this is for the general population. There are some cases, I'm sure, that people that children at like 48, 50, where they're like thriving, and sadly not a yeah, not a common thing, but it's just proof that the body, if it worked in alignment with nature and how it was supposed to be, we could do incredible things by today's standards. So that was a very good question that you asked. Thank you for that.
yeah, when we think of what could be and where we're at, but then I always think it's better to face where we're at. And look, I was very grateful, in fact, when I first started healing 5 years ago now, almost 5 years ago, that I didn't have kids, because I would not have been able to get to this stage where I became my own kid. I really had never looked at it in that way, that I can be my own kid. So what
That's
about,
exactly.
yeah, what about where you're at right now with your health? Like, what are your focuses on for you right now?
Yeah, so right now, well, I am trying to see how I can get my cycle back from hypothalamic amenorrhea, but I've been putting a lot of stress on myself since last September, and it hasn't served me. And again, you see, I really humbly say I'm human too. No matter how much I study, I'm my own case study at times, and so, well, all the time. Um, the truth is, to get my period back, I would have to gain weight. I would have to adjust a lot of things, and I have a very crazy lifestyle. And I have actually come to realize that I right now cannot handle an extra thing to do and pay attention to. And because I feel so great, I really just don't want to bring more in my body, in my life, where I have to stress. And I've been stressing about this for like since September. The other thing is also, I need more fats. But for me, and you and I had this conversation before, for me, fats are very weird because I can't actually have many fats. Like, my body doesn't like them.
Mm,
So I don't feel great with fat. I feel sluggish. I feel tired. Even if, and I go in, like, I'm very metabolically flexible. Like, I eat and I will burn the carbs. Then I stop burning carbs and I go back into fat burn. Like, I measured this with a lumen. So I'm super high flexibility, but fats per se are a struggle for me. So hemp seeds and chia seeds I can handle, but nuts, maybe because of the omega-6, I'm not sure. Maybe my body's just not really happy with it. So that's been the conundrum, because how many, like, I eat sweet potatoes, I eat, which I eat sometimes, I must say, because I'm mostly raw. And by the way, I
Mm.
just thought like I want to be raw, but tofu. I hear you. That's my one thing that I really struggle to give up. Like actually, all week I've been eating, 100% raw except for the tofu. So okay, it's not 100%. It's 98%. That is really hard for me. This week, obviously, with the juicing, will be 100% raw. But I have felt that inner calling that I need to go raw. Like it's actually been the my where I am at, where I don't want to leave the tofu, is because it's an easy protein, full complete protein, and it's also quite a lot of calories. So that is my saving grace, because I think because of the massive amount of salad that I have, I mean I barely hit 250 calories with a
Mm.
big salad when you think about it, unless you put fats, but because
But
fats
yeah,
don't
of
work for
course.
me, it's a struggle. So it's been that. And I know, like, Lisa, like I know Lisa talks about this a lot, like the balancing of you should have about 2,500 calories on a raw and only 20% of fats. But
Yeah.
again, 2,500 calories for me, it's a lot, because I would have to eat three times. I don't have the time to eat three times.
Yeah.
Like if I eat food twice and I'm like, I'm done for the day. I don't want to think about food again. I just
Yeah.
do not have the time. So it's a struggle. And but equally, as I said, I feel really good. I think people worry about certain things more than I should. I mean, of course, I use diagnostics. I have access to a great diagnostics. Like I do blood work every 6 months. I will check that everything is fine. If I have to scale it up and do every 3 months, I'm happy to. But I always look at what is going on into the body. Like I realized I had to take some supplements. I started taking supplements again because my iron was not low, but it was getting low. So I'm like, okay, let's take a supplement. As soon as I started taking the supplement, I felt better. So I look pretty much about how I do things, but I definitely, yeah, for me the raw food right now, it just feels like it's the right thing to do. And I mean, I healed on mostly raw, and I think for
Yeah.
me that has been such a powerful thing. Like those big salads when they came into my life, my big juices, the smoothies, like it was like, oh my gosh, I felt it at cellular level,
Yeah,
like
you
there
do.
was a party going on. So
Yes.
yeah, so it's like, why wouldn't I want to feel that amazing? And fats don't make me feel that amazing. And I love making raw desserts. They're fun. I actually make them for a friend of mine who has a bakery, and she sells them because I just love making
Oh,
them.
that's
Yeah.
lovely.
And they just fly off the shelf, right? Because there's
I
no like
love
really a
that.
big culture of raw desserts here. But you know, I I when I eat them, I just don't feel great. So, and I don't even
Yeah.
use any oils, like the nuts are the fats. It's not like I add coconut oil or any of that. But it's really a struggle. So, um but I just love the raw. I think for me in this stage of my life, it's like a powerful food to get me through everything. And because I'm really cognizant of the fact that I really want to heal that deep trauma that is sitting within me, especially
Mm.
from the relationship that I've been in, where right now I just feel like I don't feel heard, I don't feel seen. I haven't for a long time, if ever. And that has touched on my inner child, right? Not feeling seen, not feeling heard by my parents. So I just feel like it's so incredibly important to like nourish yourself with the food that allow you to do that. And raw makes it possible to feel raw. You feel everything.
Yeah. I'm hoping, see, I hope even this podcast maybe gives you more of a voice, and you process things at another level. I have found that doing podcasts has helped me exponentially, not just by me talking, but the co-hosts and people in the comments, is processing in a community. Half the reason I think I don't feel safe is because it's such a unique thing to do, and it doesn't feel unusual for me. So I've been so sick, I've always been very different. So doing something extra different, I don't even know whether I ever process the fact that I'm staying very different, because actually when I was younger, my idea of getting well was like, I want to be sailing around the world, expensive things. I want fancy dinners. That's my class of like living the high life. And then when I healed, I was like, no, that's all wrong. That stuff made me sick. Like I want
Mm-hmm.
to feel really good. But I do know a lot of people look at the raw diet about they go and they come at like, I can't do this, I can't do that, because of, there's always a reason, right? They've got this fear around it, and the reason you're looking at other diets is because what you're currently doing is not working. So
Mm-hmm.
you're doing something about it, right? And what if nothing is perfect? What if every diet you look at, but you're being called to raw, but you're worried about protein, or you're worried about B12? Just do something about it. Like, people really, and I know it is the conditioning of society, where society has been, you're really indoctrinated. There's a lot of fear, and it's like, that will happen, that will happen. And a lot of people at the moment are more comfortable going carnivore only because the algorithm and social media has it at the forefront. There's no other reason that more people are doing it. And there was more of a trend of raw back 2010, 2012, because the algorithm decided it was going to push it. And I
Yeah.
was talking about this, I think, yesterday, about how people we idealize have just been favored by an algorithm, but we think they are better. Like, we actually literally think they've done something special, but all that has happened is algorithms have favored them, and we are now slave to what the algorithm, which is actually just a computer,
Yeah.
is doing. But yeah, if you want to go raw, just try it, and whatever your fear is, do something about it. Like,
Yeah.
if because what you're doing, you're probably having to take medication. What if you went raw and you took a B12 tablet and an iron tablet, or whatever you felt you needed? Is that much better? I think that's really important for people to look at.
I mean, yeah, raw has to be done right and mindfully, and it may not work 100% for somebody, but you can still be plant-based, and you can still do 90% raw, and
Yes.
and also not blaming the diet. I feel like this is one thing that happens a lot online. Um, and actually talking about the carnivore, like I see a lot of hormone experts and my colleagues in the naturopathic space, even, which breaks my heart, because to me, not naturopath coming from nature shouldn't rely on animals, but they are all harping on animal products, protein, protein, protein. And yes, we need more protein as we get older, but you can get it from plants. However, I will also say, when we talk about why they, like, for example, there's a big menopause, perimenopause group online of doctors, or influencers, doctors, or whatever you want to call them, um, that will really demonize grains. Now, from where I'm standing, personally, I've noticed that grains per se don't work for me. So rice, I used to love rice, and my body's like, sweetie, no more. But
I like
no,
how nicely you said that, sweetie. No.
no more. I can tell I can tolerate quinoa. I can tolerate buckwheat in small amounts. So, but I also learned this, that when I work with my hormones, estrogen is a party girl. She does not like
Yes.
to sit on the couch. She does not like high glucose. So, if you don't eat buckwheat, if you don't eat your sweet potatoes, your bananas, your papayas, your mangoes, all these starchier veggies and fruit during your and grains. Well, I mean, those are pseudo grains, the quinoa and the buckwheat anyway, they're not actual grains. But if you don't have them when estrogen is supposed to be high, you're doing yourself a favor. If you can add them a little bit during a time where progesterone needs them, because progesterone is like the lazy sister. She wants to be on the couch eating popcorn and watching a movie, Bridgerton,
Yeah.
and just relaxing. It's like, do not try and take me to the gym and do anything crazy. I just want to sit on my
Yeah.
butt and do a bit of yoga and then watch a movie. So you need higher glucose for her, and this is the balance of the hormones. And so there you can add a bit of quinoa, you can add a bit of buckwheat, but there's a whole camp online that is like, you can't have this, you can't have that. Like, they're demonizing even starchy veggies like beetroot and carrots. We just have to have animal products because your gut, well, newsflash, your microbiome needs fiber, and fiber is not found
Yes.
in animal products, period. So
And all the dumping of the hormones has to be bound to the fiber to
to
be
the fiber.
excreted from the body. And all these animals, besides being injected, because people will go, I have free range. Let's say you have free range, is they've been selected for breeding because they're bigger, which means they're already making sex hormones, which are in the muscle tissue, and they're bigger. They're going to pick the biggest one. So you are getting it. So your body stops making its own. That's the way the body homeostasis works. So
Yeah,
I just think I think about animal products in long term. There's no long term results of
I know.
centenarians stating I ate meat for 50 years, and
No, there's no science behind what the benefits are long term. And I think people forget that this carnivore trend is an elimination diet. And so instead of
yeah,
blaming the diets we're having, we have to understand what's going on with your microbiome. Is your gut actually healthy? Is it working properly? Do you have enough variety of bacteria? Remember, we're more bacteria than cells in our body. And so if you don't have the right bacteria to break down the fiber, and to have enough bacteria, you have to have a variety of plants, because every plant will give you a different strain of bacteria. So it's super
yes,
important to make sure that we have a variety. And again, it doesn't have to be raw, guys. I mean, we are choosing that, but it doesn't have to. I don't want anybody to feel like they are, they have to do it in a certain way. I really don't think there's a perfect way to do it, like, yeah, to be raw or not. I love it. I think it makes you feel in a very amazing way, but you also have to be ready for it, because if you have some digestive issues, eating raw can cause some issues with your gut. And so
yeah.
maybe then you start blaming the diet, and it's not the diet. It's like, how do we fix your gut before you're actually able to have more raw food? Somebody said here, I don't eat a lot of fruit because it hurts my stomach. So, we would have to understand how this person how this person is actually eating the fruit, for example. Do you eat it with other meals? Do you have it, alone, which you should do with fruit. You should never have it without a fruit, to be honest with you. So there's a lot of a nuisance, again, that goes into this
Yeah.
conversation, right? And also, I noticed, Kerry, you said you are a man. We are talking about women's hormones for a reason. We are very different to men. We we metabolize hormones in a different way. We are very different. We have very different reactions to food as well. So we have to make sure that we understand that, because I think when you're a man, you're actually in a luckier position. Things are more straightforward.
It
Um,
will literally like it's like straightforward, right? We're like the round, the curvy, the in, out, the up, down. Men are like, you need something done, walk straight there, do it. Like, it's very structured, right? Very
yeah,
straightforward.
I mean, and men have estrogen too, but they make it in the brain from testosterone. Sorry, yeah, from testosterone. So it's a very different pathway.
Yes. Okay. So this has been wonderful. I did just want to finish up. I wanted to just, and it
Awesome.
relates back to the hormone, like the HRT and any medication, and kind of sums up all of this. I saw a comment I missed back up here. I think was this was this the first one? Okay, was it about coming back to
Mm,
psychedelics? Okay, because I want to just give you an example. Is if you have been eating like a plant-based diet, you're sleeping well, you meditate, you do yoga, you have like a low stress job, and you decide to go to a ceremony and you talk it through and you're in touch with yourself and your spirit, and you have the psychedelic or the ayahuasca and you unpack it afterwards. It's like a huge ceremony for you. That to me is very different than if you are a partier, you're lacking sleep, your digestion's gotten bad, and ayahuasca, you're going to jet out to some retreat and it's going to fix it. And to me, that's the same where I'm like because I use the estradiol replacement is my job before I walk in a doctor's office is to make sure I'm working on my sleep, my stress, my diet, my exercise, good people, good choices. And then if I'm doing all that on repeat and what I'm not doing is caused an acute situation or I was struggling because I've had so much surgery and so many organs removed, then I choose to use a small amount to support me, but it's not the fix. And I think that's like the message, right? Is that we as women and men need to take responsibility, look after ourselves. And there is all of these things that can help us, but we have to, do some work.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And as I was saying, I don't think I didn't mean to sound like I was judgmental of psychedelics. That's not the case. We were talking in the sense of trying to use it as a quick fix, and a lot of people bypass. It's a spiritual bypassing, right? It's a spiritual bypassing, but with psychedelic. you cannot bypass trauma. Actually, to be honest with you, this was one of the main issues that I have with my ex-husband, because he does spiritual bypass a lot, you know. And
Mm,
when I try to speak to him about this, he just doesn't want to hear it. But like the thing
mm,
is that you have to feel everything really deeply, like the pain, without taking anything, without thinking that God is gonna fix it for you. Like you have to feel it and process it as a human in your brain and reconstruct everything that happens. That doesn't have anything to do with forgiveness. We're not talking about going back and holding grudges. We're talking about, actually, the deepest forgiveness is the forgiveness we have for ourselves, which a lot of
I was
people
about
don't
to
even
say,
think
yeah,
about, you know?
yeah. That's very well said. Most of the forgiving I've had to do is for staying in a situation or making a choice, and then I get more power as well.
Yeah.
I feel more power. So
Terry
we
said
will be
something really good actually here. It
okay.
might help short term, but you still have to do the emotional work. Exactly.
And does it help short term, or does it just create more neural pathways for addiction?
And
When
no, to
we
be fair,
start,
well,
like as in like something bad happens, we're just going to keep running to it. So,
okay, so can I just reply to this? I never had, yeah, ayahuasca, I guess. I had mushrooms. I tried mushrooms, and I will also say, I didn't like the way they made me feel in the moment. Like I felt yucky. I felt like, because I didn't trip or anything. I was sleeping, and my brain, I could feel something, and I felt like crawling under my skin. But, and it was very small amount, like 1 gram. But I, after I've noticed one thing, the things that I really liked about the mushrooms, that they really balanced out my nervous system. I wasn't triggered. I wasn't responding with reactions to things. I was really, really leveled out for a
mm,
few months after taking it, you know? So I was like, that's interesting. So I can see the value of that and why people microdose, to be honest with you. Um,
yeah,
and and it's different, but it's different to like tripping on a harder. I mean, ayahuasca, you can't compare ayahuasca to magic mushrooms. Sorry, guys.
yeah. I saw a study showing the actual results or what was happening in someone's brain when they were having the psilocybin, and about how you take the small amount, and they showed that a part of the brain which is overactive, with all the trauma in the cortex, shuts down. And what's interesting is when you take it is a part of the brain reboots that was never lit up before, and it stays lit up, and depending on how much you continue to take, it can last for months with one dose or years. And so you're basically kind of saying what they said. But I will say, I have split with reality. I have lost a lot of my
Yeah.
memory to trauma. I've been in different realms and different dimensions just because of trauma. 10 months in a psychiatric unit one day. And I wanted to ground. I was like, so when people, especially when you first get well, all you want to do is come back together. And I get people want to help their trauma by fracturing into that space a little bit. But if you've ever cracked it wide open, and the amount of people in there that have been not on psilocybin, but on uh, meth and marijuana is exponential. So you're cracking in to that realm to try and help yourself. So it's always just mindful to be aware. So
Yeah, totally. And it's
anything
true
else
that
you
even
want
when you want to do these drugs, somebody said I water fast before. Look, again, there's no judgment here. Um, if you're intentional about it and you're prepared, and everybody can do whatever they want. We are really talking in the realm of the generic person that keeps on going on retreats and then goes back to the same lifestyle without changing anything, because when they're sober they don't do the work. That's the problem here. It's not about going to do your experimental drugs. Everybody's free to do whatever they want. It's your body. um you know
Yeah, I remember when that Goop show was on Netflix, and it becomes trendy to just jet off, and some of these things they're promoting are quite expensive, and it becomes a trend, and the more money you have, the more you can throw at it. And I think what I know about this journey is I know what's right for me now. So as long as I think that's a huge. part of it.
Huge. Honey, do we have any? I don't know. The comments we see here, they're from our live here, but are they comments on YouTube as well?
We have seen all comments from your YouTube channel, my Facebook, my YouTube channel. I haven't seen
Perfect.
any come up from Instagram. So
Okay.
I don't know whether it's gone through or whether you wanted to check that.
Let me just see how to
If there's
do
any
that.
questions.
No, there's no questions on YouTube.
Yeah, so that's all good. So we'll be back next week. If you have any questions, leave them underneath the videos. They'll be, as we said, Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. So thanks, Chantal.
Thank you. And yeah, that was good. And we really encourage questions because then we can tailor the topic to what is still pending. Now remember, it's women wellness. We focus on that. So gentlemen are actually welcome to come on the Skye because we can
Of course
educate them. Like you're the partners, and we want to have understanding partners with us, and so learn about women, and then empowering women to feel supported here too. Because I know when it's this, when you go out there's a lot of gaslighting. That's the worst thing ever.
Yeah, so this is about you guys, and I love that Kerry comes away from all these podcasts and goes makes a salad. That's what we love to hear. You're just there working on yourself. But yeah, we'll definitely tailor the topics based on your responses, and we will see you next week. So
Yeah.
bye guys.
Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.